Welcome back to the Influencers Journey Show. My name is Suzanne Hart. My girl over here, you know her, that's Taria Hodge. Our topic today is why one skill can increase your income. How many of you would like to have your income increase by one skill? And one skill that we all are capable of doing, it doesn't cost you. You don't have to have a tool. You don't have to have anything. It's you. How do you use you and your voice to increase your income? So, Taria, are you ready?
I am absolutely ready.
All right. So, you know, the first thing I think we should just dive in is why should
Mhm.
all entrepreneurs, coaches, and consultants and authors learn to speak? Why do you, what's it for you?
Y- uh, Like you said, it's just that one thing that I think that we all need to master. It speaks directly to how we show up in the marketplace. So a lot of times we stretch for the big things. We look at, like you said, all the tools, all the gadgets and the gadgets, and we forget that we have the most powerful thing at our arsenal, which is us and our voice. And so it's important for all entrepreneurs, whether you're a coach or a consultant, whether, you have a service based program or a product based program, this is the one skill that we all need to master.
Absolutely. It takes me back to when I began speaking, and I thought that I was a good communicator. People actually told
Mhm.
me that I was a good communicator. When I actually learned the art of speaking and the art of storytelling, it increased my command of my language. It increased my ability to convey a message. More importantly, it increased my ability to paint a picture in the minds of someone and enroll them in a possibility, an idea, a thought, a vision. And that's what really is key for all of us entrepreneurs, because the sale process is enrolling people in a possibility. Having someone join your organization or go on a journey with you is enrolling them in your vision. So, this is what we do know, that communication is the top skill of most successful entrepreneurs. Their ability to convey a message, ask for something, paint a picture, and impact the people who they believe are their divine customer. That's what speaking does. That's what communication does. And that's why everybody should do it. Now, Sri, don't you find that most entrepreneurs, because I know I did it, most coaches, consultants, authors, they say, well, I don't plan to take the big stage. I was actually having a conversation with someone today, and they said to me, well, I don't plan to take the big stage. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say, that's something that you definitely need to rethink. But I would, have to admit first that I was that person. And so I remember early on in my entrepreneurial journey, like I said, I shied away from speaking. And, just the thought of getting up in front of a stage with hundreds of people just absolutely terrified me. And like I said, I convinced myself that instead of a speaker, I'm a trainer. So I too did, well in those small groups, one-on-one conversations. And the thing is, I stuck to content. And, we'll talk a little bit more about how that shifted in my business. That was one of the biggest shifts, that when I once I understood, how speaking and storytelling could just change everything for you, then I got the aha moment. But yes, I was that person who shied away. You could not get me to say that I'm a speaker. It was like pulling teeth to get me to stand up on large stages. But here's another thing that I want everyone to start to consider. This skill is so important because you talk about communication. And a lot of times when we talk about speaking and we talk about, sharing your story and getting your message out there, people really do tend to limit it to just, the stage or the big stage. But I'm here to share with you, this is all across the board for your marketing. So whether you are speaking on stages, whether you are writing, copy, you're doing email marketing, and my favorite, when you're showing up on social media, understanding the skill of speaking and communication just makes
Mhm.
everything so much easier. So people ask me the question all the time, how can I get better at writing copy? How can I create those messages that attract my divine client? And it all starts with just mastering this one skill.
You know, one of the things that is really key to remember is that a presentation
Mm,
is as long as you're in front of a person. So when we're talking about becoming a speaker, an orator, someone who has a command of their language, it is one to one, it is one to two, it is one to a small group, and then it is bigger. It is when you're on Zoom, it is when you're sending an email. There's so many ways that we convey messages. And the question I want you to ask yourself is, are you talking or are
mm-hmm.
you conveying the message and having the impact that you want to? Because oftentimes people will say, well, I'm comfortable speaking in front of the room, but how many of you have had someone get up in front of the room, talk away at you, and you're not moved, you're not inspired, you're not touched, you're not called to do anything, and you're waiting for them to end their presentation? How many of you have sat down and had someone flip through slides and read what was on the docket, and that's what they did, and they called it a presentation, but you weren't engaged, and you went away going, well, I could have read the slides myself, like, why did I even bother showing up? Those are the things that we're talking about. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be that presenter. You don't want to be that predictable. No one should be able to take your slides home and actually understand your whole presentation. You and I have so much in us that this is your opportunity to learn how to express yourself so that not only do you have an impact, but you move people. That's really what we're talking about. So,
I absolutely love it because, like you said, it's definitely the game changer. So, how do you master that skill of speaking, storytelling, and knowing that what it does, it really creates that engagement with
mhm.
your audience? You want to build that connection and you want to have that engagement with your audience. Love it. So now I'm going to ask you a question, Suzanne. So, what would you share are some of the benefits of speaking?
you know, before I started speaking, I will say that no one actually saw me as credible as I believed I was,
Mm,
because I hadn't really had any financial success that, people are wowed by financial success. I hadn't had any. So that was the thing. Yet I was trying to build a team. I was trying
mm,
to build a business. And so one of the questions I had was, since I haven't had any financial success, I saw myself as not being credible. I saw myself as not having any credibility. What got me was when I started speaking and I started stepping on stages, I had instant credibility. Now, what was interesting was my income hadn't moved yet. My success hadn't grown yet I had instant credibility. So I have this saying that the leader must show up before the money. The leader
yes.
must show up before the success. The leader must show up before the accolades and all that wonderful stuff. And it's the decision that we each make to lead ourselves. Part of leading ourselves is getting that command of your language and stepping out in front. And so one of the things that I realized was, as soon as I started speaking and people saw me as a speaker, I had instant credibility. So that was the first thing. I think the second thing, and this is similar to writing a book, right? When you say to someone, "I'm an author," they're like, "Whoa, you're an author!" Instant credibility. When you step on stage, instant credibility. I remember, how many of you have gone to a trade show?
Oh, yeah. Uh huh.
Okay, you get the sea of tables and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
When I understood the power of speaking, I used to say, "I'm not going to a trade show unless they let me step on stage."
Mm,
And what started to happen was that I would be able to spend time on stage and connect with the audience, engage the audience, talk a smidgen about not my product, but the benefits that I was here to offer, and then step off stage. And
mm,
suddenly my booth, my table became popular. So the other thing is that The benefit of speaking is it, in my mind, it's one of our top marketing tools that most people don't use.
Yeah.
Because once you get in front of an audience, when you start storytelling, I know I say it, there's a sale inside of every story. And the sale is not your product, the sale is you. And every time when you tell a story correctly and you engage and enroll people and you move them to know, like, and trust you, now they're more than likely to buy from you. And you can do that through stories, you can do that through engagement, you can do that through your personality. That's what speaking allows us to do. So those are two that I'm going to drop. Do you
Mm.
have
Yeah, I want to share and just add a little bit more to something that you mentioned. And what you said that was so interesting is when you started off in your business, you didn't have the financial success.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah, and I think this is so huge because one of the things that I hear all the time, from from clients that I work with, and even some colleagues who are just stepping in onto their entrepreneurial journey. How do I build credibility? And the cool thing about it is like once you get this piece, then you have the unique opportunity to share your story. So once you have, gone through that experience, you've created the transformation for yourself. It is now the onus is on you to now start sharing that with your people, sharing it into the marketplace. And I love what you said, like the first person is us. And so being able to definitely command, the stage, whether it's a live stage, virtual stage, and share people like this is where I've been, and this is the things that I these are the things that I've learned, and now I'm
Mhm.
prepared to take you on this journey, to where you want to be. That is a process. So a lot of times people kind of shy away and shrink back from showing up and sharing, their expertise because they haven't mastered, this skill. But once you understand that this is definitely a skill that you could use in the beginning, you don't have to wait until you have a large audience to start to, figure out how do I speak. Start from now. And then the first set of stories that you start to share, is your journey. And you put that out there and you convey your messages out your message into the marketplace, which starts to attract your people. And then you'll be able to now get others to start to bring in the testimonials. But it first starts with being able to share your story.
Absolutely. It is such an interesting journey, the journey to speaking. And I want to talk about posture for a moment.
Hmm.
How many of you hide behind the word shy? That was me. I would pretend I was shy. I actually convinced myself I was shy for many, many years. I was afraid of the stage. I was not shy at all. But shy was a great place to hang out and hide behind.
Hmm.
What speaking did was also give me posture.
Hmm.
And posture is an interesting thing because have you ever had someone walk into a room and just the way they entered the room, you went, who is that? They
Yeah.
got a swagger, they got a way about them, they got an air about them.
The confidence.
They're confident and
Yes.
you feel it on them. And it's not anything they're saying or trying at. They just got this way. One of the things that became apparent for me was the more comfortable I got in my skin in front of the room, the more confident I became in the room. Because people once saw me different, but I felt different
Yeah.
because it took a level of growth, a level of self awareness, a level of beginning to know, like, and trust myself to get up on stage and to start command and to also convey and put messages that scared me at times
Yeah.
into the space, messages that I wasn't sure how I was going to land. And the more I did it, it was almost like I was becoming 10 feet tall and bulletproof.
Yes.
So, and I will say to everyone listening, posture is half the battle. when you're an entrepreneur. The posture you have can either say, walk with me, or it might say, yeah, I'm telling you about how amazing my product is, but I know my posture is saying run from me, or wonder whether you should walk
Yeah.
with me. So one of the things that it did for me, Tria, was it gave me just this sense of confidence that translated in how I stood, how I walked, how I carried myself, and also how I now engage people in one-on-ones. I thought I was good before, but it
Yeah.
was different.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is when you start speaking, and particularly when you start speaking, you got time crunches. Your command of language begins to shift. You learn to say less and have more of an impact.
Mm-hmm.
You learn to paint pictures. You learn to articulate yourself in a way that moves people. So the demand on your language changes. The way you speak changes, and the way you feed yourself. And what I mean by feed yourself, voracious reader,
Oh yeah.
read every day. And the reason I read every day is I'm loading my brain with content. I'm loading my brain with stuff I can pull out when I'm in front of an audience. I can pull out when I'm in conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
when you start working on speaking, all those things changes you.
Yeah. Most definitely. And I have to go back to, my favorite topic once again, talking about social media. So this is one of the biggest things that I think that's a huge opportunity for a lot of entrepreneurs that, most of them really aren't using, to their benefit. Understanding this one skill will also help you take your social media to the next level. So I hear, and see people all the time. They say things like, oh, I don't like social media. I don't need to get on to social media. But you used a word in the beginning that's called leverage. And I look at social media as a tool, and you talk about being able to get your message out, to from one to many instead of one to ones. Well, social media is the perfect place for you to do that. And then
Mhm.
what I love about it is that everyone has access to it, and you have access to it at any time. So if you're out there and you are trying to hone your skill on becoming a speaker, there's no better place for you to practice that on social media. Flip open your camera, start doing those lives, deliver your message, get it out there, connect, and engage with your audience. That's what it's all about. So, like, do not miss the opportunity that's right in front of you.
So, one of the common questions, Taria,
Mhm.
is how can speaking increase your income? And I know for myself, it catapulted my income. It was night and day what speaking did for my income. And I want to talk about why,
Sure.
and why it happened. So the first thing we want to talk about is leverage. And when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I started part time, and I had only a few hours in a day. And what I started doing was I started doing presentations on the weekend, because the truth be told, I didn't have enough time to do all these presentations in the week, because I had a job, I had 3 boys at home, I had a husband, I had a house I was running, I had kids in soccer all over the city. I was a busy person. Yet I had this dream that I was going to become self-employed and retire myself from my job. Most people laugh, but I was like, yeah, that's me, I'm doing it. What gave me access was this thing called leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Because imagine, rather than picking up the phone and doing a presentation to each person, I picked up the phone and invited people to one place,
Yes.
one night a week, where I was going to show up and present. And at first, it started with like me and 5 people in a room, 10
Mm-hmm.
people in a
Mm-hmm.
room, me and 15 people in a room. When we got this going, it was me and some an other presenter and 500 people in a room. Think about that for a moment. And I was still working my job. And so that is one of the things when we talk about leverage is
Mhm.
imagine being able to speak to a group of people about what you do, why you do it, and why they should think consider using your product. It
Mhm.
is the most amazing thing. So that was the first thing. The other reason it increased my income was that when people began to see me on stage and I became good, what also began to happen was I also began to have invitations. First, they were in the company. And then I remember the first day I got the invite to speak outside my
Yes.
company. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And once I spoke outside my company once, I started getting these
Yes.
calls. Would you like to speak here? Would you like to speak there? Well, it's two things happened. One was when I spoke, it gave me credibility. People wanted to know what I did, and then I got to tell them.
Yes.
And sales were made. But this is the other thing. When I decided to transition from network marketing into what I'm doing now, because I had been out speaking, I came with credibility. So
Yes.
even when I was transitioning, people were still asking me to come speak. And I was like, well, I'm not speaking on the same topic. They were like, that's cool. So one of the things about your ability to command the stage and to command an audience, it moves with you. And and the credibility, the reach that you have also moves with you. And I said the word reach because I want to talk about, Tree talks about social media. I want to talk about flipping you open your camera and just speaking. And there's something about people being able to see your voice, see your face,
Yeah.
feel your energy, um, believe they know you, that allows them to connect in a very unique way. I can't tell you how many times I've had people call me and say, I saw a video on Facebook or I saw a video on YouTube. I went to your channel and watched a bunch of videos. Then I went to your website to check you out. And now I wanted to talk to you about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, whoa. And I want people to get this. This is someone who's never liked a post,
Mm-hmm.
never commented,
Right.
never said, I'm following you. Half the time, these are the silent people that are busy. So they don't spend a lot of time per se on social media liking, hashtagging and doing that. So they're doing their thing, checking some stuff, and they're off. And they're hiring.
Yeah.
They're looking. That will increase your income. So, when you start, it may not be that big a deal. You're speaking in these small places, but as it grows, as you grow and it grows exponentially. And then it tips
Mm-hmm.
and magic begins to happen. And then my income quadrupled in a short period of time because of this one thing.
It's so interesting that we're talking and we're sharing this because I'm going back to even when I made the decision that I was going to consistently, show up on social media, and I started the show Social Media Saturdays. Now, one of the things when I started the show that was interesting for me was I stayed in the realm, of doing what I was comfortable with, which was sharing the tips, the strategies, but never really understanding that, like you said, that there's a specific skill, a specific process that allows you to, show up, but, show up magnetically in a way that you are attracting the people who you are called to serve, to you. And so I also had to learn how to share my story. And this was a thing that shifted my income once I allowed myself, to be open, authentic, vulnerable, and share the tough things with my audience, not the what I do, not the how I do, but the reason why I show up and show up the way that I do. Then I started to notice things shifted. And as I put those conversations or more of those conversations into the marketplace, like you said, people started to reach out and be like, oh my gosh, I need you, to come and speak and share on my platform. I need you to share with my audience. And what I realized that this was definitely a skill that I needed to hone in on, because like I said, being deathly afraid of showing up on the large stages. I hear you talk about it all the time, where you've had the opportunity to speak in front of 5,000 people. I don't think I'm ready to speak in front of 5,000
I didn't think I was ready to speak in front of 5,000 people.
But the thing about it is, just, you know, understanding the skill, it allowed me to show up powerfully on social media. So here's the funny thing about it. We were looking at numbers this week. So maybe not 5,000 people all at once, but when you go back and you check your views on our shows, then you have, 5,000 views on it. So that counts, right? But yes, it's honing in and being able to master the skill no matter where you are. So if are that aspiring speaker or a seasoned speaker and you're commanding big and large stages, you need this skill. And then also, if you are just starting out and you feel that, you kind of need to put on some training wheels before you go, you still need this skill. So
And
this
we got you,
yes.
because most of the individuals who work with us are in training wheels, but by the time they're done, the period of time that they're with us, they're on big bikes. Their training wheels are off and they got cameras open and they're doing all sorts of fun stuff. So